spent like the morning and afternoon just sort of thinking. Actually, that's not true. I did some stuff earlier. What was I? Oh yeah, I didn't finish this. I'm sort of flip flopping between programming and then just like thinking, and then um, like pacing around my flat, just thinking, and then having a shower, and then um, that's weird. Like I think like the feeling of like water on the back of your head, like for some reason for me it like stimulates something in the brain. It's better for like big picture sort of architectural design sort of that kind of thinking, as opposed to like when I'm sitting in front of the computer just staring at Visual Studio. That's when I'm like focusing on technical stuff, and then I lose track of like the bigger picture. Um, and for the past couple of days, I've just been like basically trying to figure out what to work on next, and I think I changed my mind again since the previous video. Um, Again, I've fallen into this trap of like um, feeling like I have to work on things that I'm expected to work on rather than working on things that I actually want to work on and things that I'm actually interested in working on. Like for example, I know it's going to come off as controversial, but I don't give much of a shit about MIDI input. Obviously, it's going to have to be added eventually in some form, and I've up until this point, I've like the way I've designed everything is with the idea of eventually adding MIDI input in the future and VST support and all this stuff. Um, I've deliberately designed things to be like forward future compatible with the ideas of adding those things that everybody expects a DAW to have. But personally, I just don't give a shit about MIDI input because that's just not the way that I personally like make music. Um, and so, oh yeah, I was thinking about one thing that I was talking about before, which was like um, this so-called instrument system, um, which I basically know how it's going to work, but it's just going to be so much work for something that I don't think is actually the whole point of the instrument system, which I've been banging on about for like 2 years, is to just to provide an input for the user to like crank out MIDI input on the MIDI controller and have it do something in some way and have those MIDI events have some kind of representation within Blockhead, which is just something that I don't care about. I don't care about it. Um, and so I was talking about like the fact that you can have an instrument and then you could like select a lane and have it like dynamically inserted into the lane. And then I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but that doesn't really well, it does make sense and it doesn't make sense at the same time. The reason it doesn't make sense is because of the Blockhead's baking system. So this effect is like fully baked. So when it plays back, it's not doing any like Spring Reverb DSP. It's literally just essentially playing back an audio file because it's like automatically it's pre-calculated the result of this effect, taking into account all of the blocks that exist above it. But from the start, ever since I added the baking system, I added the ability to like disable it for specific blocks. So that's why it actually does make sense to be able to like dynamically insert things into these lanes and have them funnel through, because you could also just disable baking for blocks. Um, but a lot of the time the baking would just be turned on anyway, and that's probably what you would want. Uh, so then I was thinking, okay, the first like pass of the instrument system, I probably wouldn't dynamically insert it into the middle of a track and have it go into the effect blocks beneath it. I would just do what I'm planning to do for VST instruments, which is just it goes an instrument plays on a particular track, but it bypasses the content of the track and just is routed to the bottom of the track where there be some kind of effect rack. Um, and then I was thinking about the idea that these blink effects could be instantiated in a special mode where they would um, act as effect rack effects instead of these momentary effects that have like a begin and end in the timeline. They would just sit on an effect rack and be constantly running like a VST effect. Um, and then I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, does that make sense to have these blink effects like operate in two different modes depending on the context in which they're being used? Not really. If I was going to do that, I would just take the DSP code out of the effect and implement it as a VST effect or a clap effect or whatever. Now I was thinking about clap and how if I was going to start adding like VST and clap support, I'll probably start with clap support because it's probably simpler than VST to like implement a clap host. So now I was like looking at the the clap. I spent like 2 hours looking at clap, um, and it's funny actually because well, Blink is not like it's not meant to like compete with. Um, I made a note of actually um, stating that it's not like a VST like plug alternate plugin format or anything like that. Blink's its own sort. It's solving its own. It's solving a bunch of problems that are specific to Blockhead, but yeah, it's doing a similar sort of thing. And I always sort of said I was always sort of like slightly apologetic about the way that Blink works because I was thinking, um, oh, this is it. It works in such a strange way because of the strangeness of Blockhead. Um, it's not just like input in and output out and then parameter data. It's like it's just a little bit strange. And I was sort of like slightly apologetic about how what I thought it was like quite complicated compared to like VST and clap. And I was just looking at clap and I was like, holy fucking shit, this is so much more complicated than Blink. It's like so massive. It makes sense, I suppose, because you have to have some. It's not like I'm not trying to be disparaging of Clapper. I think this is a pretty cool project, but yeah, the problems that it's solving, I suppose, are a bit more complex. I suppose because you have to like deal with um, UI as well. Um, Anyway, implementing a clap host, and I imagine the same can be said of a VST host. It's just such a massive undertaking, and it's just not something. It's a lot of work for something that I personally don't care about. um, like in terms of like, what is it that I want in Blockhead that would actually is actually stuff that I would use to make music. Uh, I don't really. rather than just think about it in terms of um, I'm some kind of businessman who's trying to create a product that appeals to people. Um, and so what is it that people want and expect out of a door? I think as soon as I start thinking in that, that's just it's just a fucking it's just a route to depression. Trying to thinking about it in those sort of terms. Like at that point, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. Like it's such a that's an important thing. If I'm not enjoying what I'm working on, and if I'm not working on something that I'm actually interested in, and that I actually something that is actually important to me personally, then I'm just going to spiral into another depression, which is what happened like a year and a half ago or whatever it was. Um, and I'm just going to be like even more unproductive. I'd rather like work on things that I care about more, um, because then I'd actually be making progress at least, rather than just hating my life. Um, Also, yeah, again, I don't know what the future holds in terms of um, like the business side of things because I don't know anything about anything. The only thing I know about is programming computers. Um, I don't know anything about anything else, and so stuff like the VST and MIDI support stuff. It is stuff that I could work on alone. Um, I think I really need like somebody, like another programmer to bounce ideas off of. Well, I've been saying that for like forever, but specifically for things like VST and MIDI support, I think it's becoming increasingly clear that I need somebody else. Uh, I mean, it's just not like Blockhead in general is not a one man job, but those um, those systems in particular, I think I need some kind of another person working on Blockhead. So yeah, I don't know what the future holds in terms of like I don't know like how like like funding and things like that. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just talking gibberish now. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, in terms of things that I am actually interested in and things that I actually want to work on, there's so much stuff. Like I can just pick a thing that I want to work on and then start working on it. So I might just do that instead of working on whatever it was I was said I was going to work on, the effect rack or or the instrument system. What else was I going to say? I don't know. What was I going to say? Can you tell how stressed I am? This is so stupid. I don't even have a real job anymore. I'm so much more stressed than when I had a real job. Real jobs are good. You just like get up every morning, have a shower, go to work, then come home at the end of the day and stop thinking about work. I miss those days.